All right. You guys ready to rock and roll? Hello. Are you guys ready to learn? How many of you are not ready to learn? Buenos dias.
Buenos dias.
How many of you are just waking up? No. Okay, very good. Well, I'm going to get started. We can go ahead and throw the presentation up there, if you could. My name is Jason Tyne, like he said, and I'm part of a foundation called the Giving Point Foundation, as well as the Giving Point Institute. And what I want to talk to you about is how to create a global education movement through youth social entrepreneurship. I truly believe that the world needs an education movement, and I truly believe that some of the challenges that have been talked about can be done through youth. And so, to start with, there's a guy by the name of Buckminster Fuller. In 1964, Time magazine named him the Person of the Year. How many of you have ever heard of Buckminster Fuller? Very few people have ever heard of this gentle giant. He was known as the world's gentle genius. He created the geodesic dome, Epcot Center that you see at Walt Disney World. And here's what he had to say. He said, "Our challenge is to make the world work for 100% of humanity in the shortest possible time through spontaneous cooperation without ecological offense or the disadvantage of anyone." And there's two important things that are in there. Number one, 100% of humanity. This isn't try to solve one problem for one group of people or try to solve one problem for one ethnicity of people. It's how can you make the world work for 100% of humanity? It's a challenge that's probably going to be there forever, but it's something to shoot towards. The other thing that's on here is spontaneous cooperation. Most people look to spontaneously compete with people as opposed to be spontaneously cooperative with other people. And so I think that that's one of our challenges is how do you create spontaneous cooperation. And so one of the things I want to talk about is what we've done at our foundation through some youth and some of the challenges that are out there. Number one, the youth, 1.2 youth being considered 15 years old to 24 years old. Currently, there's about 1.2 billion youth that are in the world. That represents 25% of the current working population. And so the problem is that the youth are three times as likely to be unemployed than all the rest of the people in that demographic. Does that make sense to everyone? Does anyone know a youth that's not employed currently? How many of you have a youth in your family that's not employed that you wish would be employed? So that's the problem. The World Economic Forum gave a couple of reasons. Number one, population continues to increase. Number two, the world economy seems to be, for most people, to be decreasing. And that creates some kind of emotion in you, which means that they're totally discouraged, right? So if you look at a problem where there's more people competing for you and you see the world going down, all of a sudden you get a little bit discouraged. And so what we want to do is provide a context or an environment that allows them the opportunity to see what a passion is of theirs and give them the resources to do it, but also the permission to do something about it. And so one of the solutions that we talk about is creating a global education movement. And Buckminster Fuller said something else that's very, very important up there. He said that words are tools. Words are tools. If you've read the Bible before, you know that it says that the Word became flesh. It's through the Word and through your words that you communicate. All day yesterday, all day today, every person that comes up here is going to use words. When you're sitting there and you're thinking, you're not thinking in abstract colors, you're thinking in words. And these words are driven by your thoughts and driven by your emotions, and that becomes the communication that you have. And I believe wherever you are, whether you're a youth or whether you want to create your own business or you work for somebody, you've got to upgrade your education. You have to upgrade the words that you use to a bigger understanding. For example, when I say the word universe, when I talk about something macro, has everyone heard the word macro before? Yeah. All right, very good. Has everyone heard the word universe before? Yeah, but when you really start talking about what that means, your brain turns off because it's very hard to comprehend what macro universe means. So for example, did you know the universe is billions of years old? Did you know that the universe is so big that you have to measure it in light years? You don't measure it in miles, you don't measure it in kilometers, you measure it in the distance that light travels over a year. Light travels at 186,000 miles per second, right? Did you know our solar system has a giant star in it called the sun? Has anyone ever seen the sun before? Yeah, you walk outside and you go, oh, the sun, it's so hot. Well, no kidding. The sun, every single second, is spitting out 92 billion nuclear blasts per second. 92 billion nuclear blasts per second. Boom! Boom! And you walk outside with your sunglasses, you go, oh, it's so hot. It takes 8 minutes for a sun ray to go from the sun and hit you in the forehead. That's one star. Our sun is one star in our solar system. In our galaxy, the Milky Way, it's just one of 300 billion stars. If you were to look outside into the universe, we're one galaxy of 100 billion galaxies. 100 billion galaxies. And you go, wow, that's cool. My brain hurts. Who cares? You ought to care. You're a part of it. And that's the micro. That's the macro. But then if you take it all the way inside of you into the micro, the same thing happens. You have something called a DNA strand. How many of you have heard of DNA before? You have DNA. And it's inside of every single cell in your body. And if I were to pull a DNA strand out of your body and pull it out, it would be 6 feet long. One DNA strand, 6 feet long. And it's got made of 4 characters, A, C, T, and G. 3 billion of them for every single DNA strand that you have. Which means if I were to pull a DNA strand out and try to read every single one of them, all 3 billion of them, it would take me 91 years to read the story of you. And you sit here wondering who you are. And you're worried about your little problems, like how do I pay my bills next month? Right? Or how do I be equal to a man? Or how do I get out of my situation? I think that you need to pause every so often and remember that you're part of a macro universe that's bigger than you can comprehend, and that you're a living, breathing miracle. You're a living, breathing miracle. And if you choose to use the words to understand who you are, you'll see new opportunities for you. Does this make sense to everyone? You're a miracle. Humanity, the next word that's up there. 100% of humanity. I think we need to talk about unity as well. You can talk about equality, women being equal to men, but I would challenge that idea. Why would women want to be equal to men? Because in a hypothesis, that would assume that men are worth being equal to. Right? Do you want the pile of problems that man has created? Or would you rather say, I don't need to be equal, I'd rather be united with them? It's more about unity, the word unity, than the word equality. Right? It's more about cooperation than competing. Does this make sense to everyone? Capacity is the next word. Most people focus on a word called capability. How do I increase my sales capability? How do I increase my capability to make more money, build a business, to be a better parent, to be a better husband, to be a better wife? What you ought to ask yourself is, how do I increase my capacity?